our next tactical idea will be the removal of the guard. The removal of the guard is very simple. When there's a piece that's defending another piece, and we remove that piece, then the piece that it was defending is no longer guarded, and we're free to take it. So let's just, without further ado, let's go into the first position here. The first position here, if white takes the queen, the knight's guarding the queen. I mean, sure, white can win a pawn here, but even so, material is still equal here, and I don't think white will have a great advantage right now. The better idea is to remove the piece that's guarding the queen. So the knight is guarding the queen, and we can remove it by taking the bishop. Bishop takes c6 immediately. Notice that this is a check, so black doesn't have time to get his queen out of danger. Black can choose to play b takes c6, but then white is free to take the queen. Queen takes d4, and white wins the queen. Black doesn't really have another option. He can't get the king out of check and defend the queen as well. So no matter what, black will lose the queen here. In the second position here, we see that black is up one pawn in the endgame, and the material looks pretty even, but black has one more pawn. So it's white to move in this situation, and white will notice that this pawn here is what's called overworked. It has two jobs. It's guarding the knight, and it's guarding the bishop. So if we somehow remove the guard, then we should remove the pawn from one of these pieces. How do we do that? Well, we simply just take one of the pieces. We can take on d5 with the knight, and when the c pawn takes, then we win his knight on b5. Similarly, if we take on b5, if his pawn takes, then we can take on d5 with the knight. Both of these should work, but if we go into a little bit of specifics here, after b takes the knight, we can play bishop takes g2 here. Since black was going to lose this bishop anyway, he decides to get one pawn for it, and suddenly white, after king takes g2, c takes b5, white finds that he has a knight, but black has two extra pawns. So this advantage is not as much as if white just simply took the bishop instead. After black's only choice is to take on d5, and then you can take the knight. White finds himself up a bishop for one pawn. So this is the best idea. White will be up a minor piece for a pawn. Notice in this situation, the one pawn has two jobs. We make the pawn actually do one of its jobs. So we take the bishop. And now the pawn cannot perform a second job, and we win the piece for free. Our next position here, we see that the queen is attacking the other queen. But if white takes the queen, obviously rook takes, and then after rook c8 check, nothing really happens here. So the idea is that we need to remove the defender of the queen, which is the rook. We notice that the king is really trapped on the back rank. It can't come up to g7 because the queen also controls that square. Let's remove all the arrows. So the correct idea right now is to check here, forcing the rook to take on c8, and if the queen takes on b2, white is up material. Okay, so for number 6 on the worksheet, we notice that in this position, white looks like he has a good attack, but it might be unclear for some to how to proceed. So let's take a look at the position right now. The two weaknesses in black's position are the f7 pawn and the h7 pawn. If the queen wasn't there on f5, then either queen takes f7 or knight takes h7 would be checkmate. So you could say that the queen would be overworked because it's defending both the h7 and f7 pawn. This means it's a great time for a deflection or a removal of the guard, right? We need to remove the queen from guarding these squares. But if we play something like, let's say, rook to e5, this doesn't really work that well. In fact, you get mated yourself here. So that's not something you want to do. We need to play something much more forcing. So a good forcing move right now would be queen takes f7, which forces the queen to take on f7, otherwise it's actually mate. And now we give checkmate with knight takes h7. The move order is not reversible. We cannot play knight takes h7 because just after queen takes f7 is no longer checkmate, the knight's no longer there. So we want to play queen takes f7 first, and then forcing him to take on f7 with his own queen. And after he takes there, we have knight to h7, checkmate. So, removal of the guard is a pretty simple topic. The key is that you need to find where the overworked piece is, which piece is doing the job that you want to remove, and you simply remove it and make sure that you win the piece that is no longer guarding.